let's jump in here. Going to try to answer some questions for you today. That's the format I'm going to use. So, first of all, where are we even talking about capture? And what difference is it potentially going to make for your organization? Obviously, you're all here, so I think you have sort of your own view of that anyway. But I'm going to just bring up a couple of points on that, and get into specifically, why should you care about that in Linux? Move into what I just talked about, which is what is different, what's smart, right, about Ephesoft, and then where could you potentially see the best value or most usefulness out of this. Can I see it is we are going to provide you a demo, a couple different use cases, as Emily said, and then finally we're going to wrap up with, well, why are we here, right? Who is the Zia company and what's our relationship with Ephesoft? So again, let's jump in. Why intelligent capture? I think it starts with the explosion of content or the content chaos. That's our context for the marketplace today. And you can see just a couple stats I found here. Domo is a company that's involved in big data. Looking at things like users sending 204 million emails every single minute of the day. You talk about the explosion again of content, of documents, of records, and how that potentially gets managed. And then the other one, which is about a year old now, but I think probably the same statistic would apply today, is the amount of data that's been generated over the last 2 years. And there's, go ahead and Google this yourself because there's, 100 different references you could find about the explosion of content. And so then, how is it getting into your organization? And I guess the way I thought about this was for those who know Harry Potter, the Dursleys, and the envelopes coming in the door and down chimney and everything else. It's coming in every way you could imagine, right? So content or document are getting your organization still today as paper through your mailroom, as faxes, obviously emails, websites, people uploading things to a portal, but also, videos or documents coming through social media or people, on their mobile devices. And so really it's coming in every way you can imagine. You can't stop it, right? Just like the Dursleys couldn't stop the envelopes coming through. And so you just need to try to manage it. And that's where we get into intelligent capture. So there are a variety of challenges today that we like to talk about in the content or document space. Today we're going to focus on one of them, and it's money, right? It's cash and profitability, and specifically really the cost of managing those documents that are flooding into your organization, the cost of document processing, and the cost of compliance, the way that you manage records and governance. And really when we get into it, it's around people costs and paper costs is the way we look at this. And that's, again, the cost of processing, the cost of storage, etc. Where is the supply? We'll get into this a little bit more later, but really throughout your organization, front office, back office, everything from, mortgage applications or insurance, life insurance applications to claims, all the way through your back office with HR, employee applications, or we did a webinar on employee offboarding, accounts payable, and then your whole sort of legal and contracts process with records management and document processing there. So really, again, it's throughout your organization that you see these challenges. And so, again, why intelligent capture? How does this help address it? We're going to get into that today. But one way I like to refer to it is intelligent capture gives the ability to have, in effect, self-funded projects, right? So the ROI is so significant and so rapid through implementation of intelligent capture solutions that, in effect, they're almost self-funded. And so we talk about with projects we work on a benchmark of an ROI of less than 9 months. We talk about a greater than 50% increase in productivity. And that's not just us. If you look at, documentation around AP automation, around claims automation, around document processing, a greater than 50% increase in productivity is not unique. We think the ROI is much more achievable with Ephesoft. And again, what we're talking about today, Ephesoft and Linux. But again, these are also sort of general reasons why you would and should consider intelligent capture. The other side of it is the ability to much more rapidly process things like applications to accelerate your time to revenue. So the other side of the ROI equation. And then everybody's looking for improved customer retention, because again, the cost of retaining a customer much lower than acquiring a new customer. And so that again is driven through greater visibility, faster processing, better information, things like that. Okay, so then why Linux, right? Why our little penguin friend here? Again, right, you're all here and so probably have made your own decisions on this, but again, go out and look at the market. I'll just share a few things with you. If you look at recent or the most recent Linux surveys I was able to find, certainly you see continued investment on the side of Linux servers compared to Windows, right? And you see this one that's 80-20. So, organizations continue to move to industry standard servers, to Linux operating systems. What is interesting then, if you dive into it, it's not just about cost. Certainly that's a part of it, and again, goes back to the ROI equation, but you look at things like increasing Linux for mission critical workloads, mission critical things like document processing, for your mortgages, for your loans, for your insurance applications, things like that. And again, it's not just about cost, as I said, it's also the features and functionality and the fact that Linux has been and continues to be more secure than Windows. Second point on why intelligent capture for Linux is about, again, the use cases that we see dominating the capture space. So government is an area where, again, continued rapid growth with leveraging capture technologies also happens to be an area where Linux has made tremendous inroads. And again, go check any of the sort of news articles you'd like, whether it's in the US or around the world, government's moving towards Linux. Second is, again, financial services organizations, people who, some of the smartest people out there in terms of technology decisions, looking for the slimmest margins and making differences on that, making decisions and have made for years. When I worked in this space, again, a dozen years ago, the financial services firms were the early adopters towards Linux, right? They're also the people who are leveraging intelligent capture technologies, again, to provide that cost reduction, to provide differentiators using technology. And then finally, on the cloud side, again, more and more people moving to cloud and cloud services, again, an area where Linux dominates, and you can see the numbers there. Okay, so then we'll move into the Ephesoft world, right? And why Ephesoft is different, and then we'll talk about why Ephesoft and Linux is different. So first of all, just a quick, one slide refresh. What is intelligent document capture? What is smart capture, which is Ephesoft's flavor of it? First of all, it starts with ingestion and the ability to take really any type of documents from any source and manage those. And so whether that's scanned paper documents, whether that's attachments coming through email, uploads, etc. The ability to then classify those documents using technology, OCR technology, without having to use in effect, manual identification, whether it's barcode, separator pages, etc. And then next, the ability to then extract information out of that, whether it is a structured form or unstructured documents, the ability to automatically do that. And finally, the ability to deliver that where you need it. And so whether that is your ERP system, whether that is an ECM system, as we'll talk about today, CRM, HCM, whatever it might be, wherever you might need it to be. Okay, so then that's IDC. Who is Ephesoft? What is Ephesoft Smart Capture? Again, as I introduced at the beginning, they are really the alternative to a lot of the IDC technologies that have evolved over the past few years. And, really specifically, the cost of those IDC technologies, and again, you can think about a Kofax or a Captiva here, and also the complexity of those, right? So it is more affordable and easier to use at the same time. They bring the management team brings over 100 years of capture experience for those who know, right, the story, obviously know the depth of Kofax experience and other areas. The fact that it is an open platform, and we'll get into this a little bit more later, but the fact that it is an open platform allows you to do some of the things I just talked about with delivery of content into, again, your ERP systems, your CRM systems, things like that. And again, the hardware side and operating system side, again, showing the flexibility today with the Linux release. And finally, the flexibility of running either on-premise or in the cloud, whatever your needs are. So again, why is that different? We're going to talk about the business reasons and some of the technology reasons. I'm just going to click through these. One more. Yep. So there we go. So again, business value, lower overall price, as I introduced on the last slide. Certainly that is part of the value, right? Compared to your legacy IDC technologies, opportunity for a significantly lower overall solution price. Couple other things that make it interesting. One is you can buy the way you want it. So you can have Ephesoft as a traditional purchase, right? A traditional license and maintenance, but you also have the option, following a lot of the open source business models, to follow a subscription model. And for a lot of people, that becomes very interesting. The second is both in terms of overall reduction in cost, but also the ability to really forecast the cost for yourself. They've eliminated all the quick charges. And so you don't have to worry about that surprise one quarter when you have a great quarter and you process a lot of new documents, but then you end up paying more for your technology. On the other side, the IT approved side, the fact that it is a thin client architecture, and so able to deploy much more rapidly. I mentioned the open standards. I mentioned the lack of, the simplicity, the removal of some of that complexity. So happy to talk to any of you about the differences in installing Ephesoft and training the system with your documents and in training users. But it is an order of magnitude difference from what people might be used to with other technologies. And then finally, just overall features and functions and capabilities and performance. Again, the benchmark against legacy systems is there. So you're getting all of those benefits without having to make the sacrifices that maybe some of you might be expecting. Okay, and then the final piece, when we talked about open standards and talked about technology, this is, personally my favorite in terms of really what I think is a differentiator in the way that people actually run their business today. And again, in the past, maybe your capture technology sat in sort of a mailroom functionality. That's not what people are looking for today. They are looking to solve business problems within their business processes. And so what Ephesoft has done with their web services APIs, and again, happy to talk to any of you a lot more about this and show it to you, but the ability to perform that classification extraction within the business process. And so, we've termed it IPC, in-process capture. And there's lots and lots of things you can do with this and lots of places you can put it. What we have built and delivered is our own flavor of this, our own unique IPC solution, and that is embedding it within Alfresco. And so within your ECM repository, and again, it's Alfresco for us, but it's also other ECM systems that people have. Again, you can put it into other technologies, but the ability to then have automated capture within that business process, Ephesoft inside, and then that delivery, again, as I said, to your business applications, so your ERP, your HCM, your CRM, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. All right, so, again, just circling back to where might this be interesting for you in your organization? Again, you're all here, so you've probably figured this out for yourself. But as I said, it's for us where we see it is where you have people and where you have paper. So we like to talk about, if you have more than 5 people doing a manual business process, we should probably talk. And certainly if you have paper and or electronic documents of a significant nature that you're processing, we should talk. Where do we see that dominated? As I introduced right earlier, it's the great thing is it's where we see Linux growth as well, right? So in financial services, whether it's mortgage, whether it's insurance, whether it's investment banking or retail banking, across government, from federal to state to local areas and people that we're talking to about Ephesoft and talking to about Ephesoft on Linux. That's one. And then the other thing that we do see is really pervasively across every type of organization. Again, in those corporate departments, corporate functions, back office functions, what we call a solution bundle, we call our secure back office. And so in terms of capture and capture on Linux, it's across your corporate finance organization. So accounts payable, contracts management, and Pat's going to show you part of the demo today is going to be targeting that. As I mentioned, across your HR organization, whether it's employee applications, employee onboarding, employee offboarding, corporate legal, whether it's legacy files and paper documents, all the way through managing, whether it's things like mergers and acquisitions or other areas where there's significant involvement of a high volume of documents. And so these are some of the people that we've worked with. Again, you can see some of the names, a lot of the names, right, are targeted in those areas. And so, again, whether it's the mortgage industry, insurance industry, as you can see here, pension funds, and again, governments. So finally, I mentioned I'd come back to this. Just the role, again, I can't stress enough, as we're out at various industry events and conferences and road shows, the questions around capture and working with your business tools. And again, the value, the differentiator of Ephesoft with the open platform and the ability to then integrate it and allow people to retain the ability to work within their existing business tools is really, as I said, a tremendous differentiator. So whether it is your ECM system and embedding it in something like an Alfresco, whether it is business process that end up with documents, be they financial documents, be they HR documents, and again, happy to talk to you about various case studies we have on these, into an Oracle PeopleSoft, into an SAP, into a Salesforce, things like that. And then, even specifically into and with very specific flavors of what are in effect ERP systems, your loan origination systems, your insurance management and policy issuance systems, your claim systems, things like that. And whether that is a point-to-point integration or through an enterprise service bus, as a number of our case studies we'll talk about, is through what we like to position, which is MuleSoft as an open source ESB, but Oracle ESB and others. And just a quick plug, you're going to have to come back and check it probably just in a matter of a few days, but we have recently launched a campaign around what we call any integration or any integrate. And so you're going to be able to go to anyintegrate.com and find out a lot more about our integration capabilities and how that might work for you. Okay, so I got a couple case studies here, and then I'm going to hand it over to Pat. I'll stop talking, which I'm sure will make some of you happy. But again, just a couple quick case studies here. So first one in the mortgage space. And again, we picked one. Happy to show you an example in insurance. Happy to show you an example in investment banking or pension funds or things like that. But this one I thought was interesting because it is focused on the cost of document processing, but in a little different way. This wasn't just about reducing costs, to aim for greater profitability. This was really about technology as a business differentiator and changing the rules of the game in the mortgage insurance space. So this is, and some of you are probably going to know who this is, but this is the newest entry into the old school mortgage insurance space. And what they said is, look, we see that we are going to be able to use technology as our leading competitive advantage here. We are going to be able to process these mortgage insurance applications much, much more rapidly than anybody is doing today, lowering our costs, providing better service, allowing us to make commitments on SLAs that nobody else can do. And so how did they do that? It was focused on automating the workflow. So the ingestion of these applications, the routing of applications into pre-approved exceptions, etc., by leveraging really a complete and seamless integration of their capture technology, their ECM content hub, and their workflow. And so what that was very specifically was as you might imagine, given what I've introduced already, Alfresco as the content hub, Ephesoft to perform that classification of those mortgage insurance application components and extraction of information. And then the other really great thing about this across Ephesoft and Alfresco was the layer we built, we call Zia OneView, which provides the analytics, the analytical information on that processing, and then was integrated with their BI and reporting tools. So great story. If you've ever seen them speak, you know it. If you haven't, certainly encourage that, or we're happy to share more information on them as well. Okay, second one, as I mentioned, the secure back office. Pat, I believe, is going to show how we process HR documents. So I didn't choose that one. I focused on one that is in the corporate finance space and specifically accounts payable. In this side of things, happy to talk to you about other things like contracts management, again, some other areas, but in this case, the secure back office example is a company called BSA Limited. They happen to be based in Australia, and so that was a lot of fun to work with them for us. And so they have kind of a unique setup. They have more contractors than they have employees. And so that and across 8 branches in Australia, they've basically covered every major city in Australia for those who know the capital cities of Australia. But as you might imagine, with 1,500 contractors, lots and lots of invoices, right, and in the rest of their business. So they had a very manual process for receiving those invoices, identifying and matching those, very costly, very slow, and as with any manual process, potential for significant errors, right? So what we did in a similar vein to the last case study is work with them to build this solution. And so automating, in this case, it was all email-based process and workflow. So Ephesoft was, again, classifying those invoices and really extracting and matching the information was the important part. And then Alfresco as a document repository and also the records management piece, which I know for many of you is a critical component. And I'll come back to that. I think I do have one more slide, actually. I'll come back to that. And then integration. In this case, it was their Pronto ERP or accounting system, which was not a technology that we'd ever worked with before, but again, showing the power of Ephesoft and Alfresco and the open standards, the ability to integrate with that. So as I said, sorry, I do have one more slide, which is back to the records management piece. So where else to deploy, in addition to your active document processing, the other that we are seeing more and more is people saying, we need to solve the records management problem. And that is either legacy paper records. We have lots and lots of documents on-site, off-site as paper records. We need to figure out what to do with that. Or it is, look, we need to figure out a better way to get documents into our records management system, apply the right file plans, things like that. And so in both cases, Ephesoft can be a really critical component to that. So, what we call the back file conversion, right? Taking all of those paper records. We have a company that saved over $5 million a year, leveraging intelligent capture technology and moving documents out of paper records into what is, Alfresco as a records management system. The other is, again, applying Ephesoft, and in particular, Ephesoft Inside, or the in-process capture within the business process. And so able to classify those documents as they come in, and then apply, again, the right retention schedule. So, yeah, again, you can see here, it classifies document types, it extracts the data you need, and then applies the right retention schedule. All right, so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Pat for a little while, and then I'll come back to wrap us up in a little bit. So thanks.
Thank you, Phil and Emily. Want to make sure that everybody can see my screen. I'm getting a thumbs up. So Phil and I started talking about this probably about a month ago or so. Okay, we're going to have a webinar on Linux and Ephesoft, and the thing that I started banging my head about is, okay, well, what can we show you that is Linux and Ephesoft? And what it came down to is that we want to show you that there's no differentiation. It's up to you to pick the operating system. And so while we were trying to kind of rack our brains on how to Linuxify a demonstration, what I want to show you is that it's not smoke and mirrors, it's working. And now it's really up to you to choose your operating system, that you have more power within your architecture to choose what you want to support. This is a huge differentiation within the capture space. Capture historically has been very Windows-based. So rather than talking, let me just show you a few things. So you can see that I have this virtual machine that is running. You can see that for those that are a bit geeky, that this is hitting local host. So I just want to show you that this is not smoke and mirrors. I'm going to log in to an Ephesoft instance on here. You can see that within this administration, and I'm not trying to go inside of here to show you deep down configuration. You can contact me if you want to know more about this, but that this is running inside of Linux, that we do have batches running inside of this Linux instance. And so you can see here, as Phil mentioned, that we have one on this onboarding system and one that's processing actually through accounts payable. So these are not unique in the sense of stories that we wanted to portray just for Linux, because these can and do work in Windows. I took these from my Windows environment. I made a few configuration changes, and here it is running inside of Linux. So that's really what I wanted to show you today. So bringing up my browser and hitting that particular virtual machine that I got running, I wanted to show you that, this is not smoke and mirrors, that this is running just as we had shown you before. So if we go inside of this account payable, for those that are not familiar with Ephesoft, it is exception-based processing. So, at the end of the day, you're trying to automate 80+% of the volume that you're getting. There's always going to be exceptions that are going through there. Somebody's going to give you something you haven't seen. You might have particular rules that people are not complying to. Not supplying you a PO per se inside of an invoice, and that might be some sort of internal requirement. So there are always going to be some exceptions, and it's very boring if I just kind of show you here it is and look at I can log in. And so I caused some exceptions to occur. So what you see here is that there's a couple of different invoices, and a couple of different invoices meaning that they're different layouts and different data. But I was able to process these and teach Ephesoft to know what an invoice is and how to pick up information based on the invoice number, the invoice date, some information around how much that the bill was for, or the particular invoice was for. And I can click around here and you can see where Ephesoft decided to extract that per the rules that I gave it to extract that information. And here you can see that there is one exception. It so happens that I caused an exception to occur saying that invoice numbers only can be numbers. And so there couldn't be a letter associated with the number. So you can see that by just removing that, I'm able to make this an appropriate document. Another thing, if you haven't seen this, this interface, is that this is made for optimizing for the operator. And so it's all about the speed, because the quicker that you can either get it around because you have a certain service level agreement for your customers, so you can have less people processing these. It all comes down to the speed that you can get these exceptions through. And so, of course, you're trying to automate as much as possible, but if there are exceptions, you want to crank them through. So this user interface, you can see, is thin client and has everything is based on shortcuts. And so they do have a few buttons and capabilities that are inside of here, like deleting a page or saving it. But when an operator becomes accustomed to the user interface, and I've seen this happen very rapidly, they're able to crank through these, be able to go to the next field, be able to save the batches, get through them very quickly. And so if I were to go ahead and save this, it said, okay, that was the last exception that you had to deal with within this particular batch class. So would you like to proceed? And of course, yes, I would like to proceed. And I can say, yes, I will. For now, I'm going to leave that in the queue. But I just wanted to show you that those bits of processing power. The second one is in the onboarding. So you can see that these have different document types. So it's able to differentiate. These just came through as a single PDF. Say, you're hiring somebody, they just faxed in everything that you asked them for. Ephesoft is able to be intelligent enough, and that's part of that intelligence, to separate them into what you have defined as a document. And so through the content that's coming through there, this is a confidentiality agreement, a drug test consent form, an employee agreement. You can see that in here we have a rule that's saying that we have this name and it's not being compliant. So I can just go ahead and click on the applicant name, or be able to type in, if I wanted to, the name. There's a number of ways that I can actually populate that data and then process it and then be able to push it through. You can see that the rest of them just were able to get all the information, be able to classify it with the confidence and validation rules that you specified for those particular documents. And then you can process it all the way through. I don't want to bore you with details here, so I'm just kind of cranking through. Again, I'm going to encourage you to come speak with me and the team here if you want to see more specifics around how we did this, how this works in your workflow. But I also want to show you a little bit more around the variability of how you can use it within your workflow. Part of what Ephesoft gives you the capability of doing, which Phil described, is giving you this in-process capture capability. So we take, going back to this other batch class of this invoice processing, that we were wanting to pull some particular pieces of information out. We can now have this definition be available for web service API. So now that you're trying to pull in this case, we're going to show you Alfresco, but now you wanted to put it inside of a particular application, this intelligence, this capability to understand what your content is, what information you want to obtain off those documents to run your business process, to make you more streamlined, to make you a quicker, better business process. It's available for, of course, Alfresco, but if you wanted to put it within your portal, and you had, we've been talking to some companies around doing exactly that, that having this onboarding process, and they have, tens of, actually hundreds of thousands of these employees that they're running, and being able to have their portal be more streamlined, so those applicants have to do less. So let's go ahead and talk through that. So if inside of the world today, for the most part anyway, whether it be your document management or your portal, and what you're going to see here is I'm going to go in this folder, and what you end up doing is you end up uploading a document. And this could be inside of your portal, could be inside of your content repository. And you can see here, it's just a document. Until I tell it it's an invoice, until I tell it it's data, which is not the most streamlined process. I can go ahead and change the type. And here I have a bunch of different types, and I can say it's an invoice, and I can do this. And I can say, okay, now that it's an invoice, I want to edit the properties of there. And then, of course, you can specify what those properties are on the invoice. It's a tedious process, and it's not what you have your subject matter experts. It's not what you have your business workers. That's not what you have what you want them to do during their day. So let's go to another little folder here. So what I did here is, and you can see this is indicative of that I created these rules. And so those rules are just calling out to Ephesoft saying things that are dropping here, try to figure out what they are. And because of what they figure out what they are, pull some data off of it. So I can see one of those same documents that I have here. And I can drag it inside of Alfresco. And if I go inside of that document, much like I did for the other, there's one major difference. Now I see that the invoice number is there, the PO number, it knows that it's an invoice. Isn't that a better world? Now you have a system that understands your business, not a system that you have to use to do your business. And so actually that went a lot quicker than I had thought. So I apologize to you. I said I had 15 minutes and then I got scared. So I started stripping it down and turns out that I took about 10. But I really want to encourage you that, going through this story and if it rings any bells, maybe this process at all, not necessarily whether it be Linux or Windows, because this technology works on both. That's our primary message on here. Now it's really up to you. So these systems, like Alfresco, like Ephesoft, they are working to not only for your business users, but for your IT workers now too, for what you choose to have as an infrastructure. So it's really in your hands and your control on how you want to run your business.
Great, thanks, Pat. Before we switch actually over, I just want to sort of reinforce. So, one of the things that's always interesting when we're talking about creating a demo of an automation system is what to actually show, because at its sort of ultimate is somebody emails in the document and then at the end you get all this stuff that comes out of it, right? That's the whole point of the automation system. And so a lot of what Pat just showed you is trying to show you how that would work. Know that, again, the power of this technology is such that whether it's invoices, whether it's employee applications, whether it's mortgage applications, the technology is there today and we're using it, and people are using it to differentiate their business or to save significant amounts of money, where exactly what I just described. Somebody emails in a document, emails in their borrower documents, or emails in their HR application and other documents, emails that in to your organization. That automatically gets placed into the ECM repository. The classification and extraction is automatically applied to it, and the integration is then done into your business applications. That entire process is automated. And so those 20 people that you have processing those documents today, again, that's what we're looking at in terms of the potential here for differentiating your business. And so again, you don't get to see everything in a demo, because if we did, there wouldn't really be anything to show. But again, know that all of this is possible. So we'll jump back to the slides. The other thing I would say is just to reinforce Pat's point. What we're trying to do here is and what Ephesoft is really trying to do is if you take, for example, Alfresco, the leading operating system where Alfresco is deployed is Linux, right? Well, so if you want to run Ephesoft with Linux, in the past, right, you would have had to then run Ephesoft on Windows. And so it's about, as Pat said, giving you choice, allowing you, or supporting the decisions that you make on TCO, on, the other factors that might come into you deploying Linux versus Windows. And again, the great thing now with Ephesoft is that flexibility and ability to do that. So as promised, we're going to get into, just in our wrap up here, we're going to get a little bit into, who are we, right? And I always struggle with, should we do this at the beginning or the end? I think most people are here to see, the technology and hear about, the story. But, so who are we? Who is Zia? We are a system integrator and a reseller of Ephesoft. We happen to be their largest partner worldwide. We've been their partner of the year the last 2 years, leading reseller, and literally wrote the book with them. So that book down on the right there is a book that Pat here and Ike, the CTO of Ephesoft, and a couple other Zia employees wrote on document capture with Ephesoft. So, we think our Ephesoft experience, our ability to deliver successful wins, is certainly part of why Zia, and really about reducing, the risk of success, whether that is, successfully deploying period, whether it is deploying on time, whether it is deploying on budget. We think, second reason why you might choose us is we are absolutely myopically focused on that ROI for you. So again, we talk about, ROIs of less than 9 months. We would love the opportunity to sit down with you with our ROI calculator and prove that to you, and show that to you, and then deliver that to you. So that focus on the business elements, the business aspects of it, is as important to us as it is to you. Third point is what we call our solution accelerator. So part of the reason we're so sure we can do that is, one, we've done it before, and we're able to bring that IP, that experience, our pre-built, predefined integrations. We're able to bring that to your project. So, when you come to us and say, hey, we're looking to do this, whether it's with invoice, with HR documents, with mortgage documents, with government documents, we can come and say, yes, we've done that, or we've done something like that. Here is, existing IP we have as Zia, existing integrations we've done, that we can bring to the table. And so that allows us, again, to reduce the risk of a failure of that project, or the risk of not, reaching it on time or on budget. And finally, it's just our methodology itself. And we'll get into that now on the next slide, which is really about how do you get there. And we do talk some about migrations. And this moving truck here, right? Moving you from where you are today. For many of you, we know with Ephesoft, it's a decision of moving from a manual process to an automated process. But certainly for some of you, the decision to move from another, capture technology to Ephesoft is something that is real, and so we're happy to talk about that with you. Again, noting that for many of you that's not the case. And then second is, again, as I mentioned, our delivery methodology. So we have we think proven successful delivery methodology that we would bring to your project. One thing that has come up over and over is people say, look, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with this, right? I'm not sure I'm ready to jump in without, dipping my toe in the water type example. And so, and certainly we know the history. We've been in the document and capture space for now 11 years as Zia, and most of our people for longer than that. And so we know, some of the concerns people have around consulting and consulting companies. And so what we've come up with for some of you, this would be very applicable, is what we call our initial consulting engagements, or ICE packages. And those are fixed price, fixed duration packages that we've put together that allow you to take a phased approach. And they're really based on work we've done across the dozens and dozens of successful Ephesoft projects. So what do those look like? Again, we have them applicable to you, whether you are looking for a single point solution for your department, again, AP, HR, whatever it might be, what we call a mid-tier corporate level, or really an entire enterprise level solution. We can provide these different phases. And so one is really the discovery process and assessment. You can start with that. You can engage with us for that. And stop there, and you get that document at the end of that that really provides that information to you. Second would be a more formal technical assessment, and finally, all the way through, providing you with a full roadmap and project management plan. Again, whether you use us to then go forward, as obviously we'd hope, or you do that on your own. So those are our ICE packages. So finally, in wrapping up here, and we will leave a few minutes for questions if people have them, or we'll give you some time back. But where do you go from here, right? Where do you start? Obviously, we'd like you to start working with us, and certainly you could start with looking at those ICE packages. But even more specifically, where do you start? As we've said over and over throughout this, please, if you're looking for more information, there's only so much we can cover in a 1-hour webinar. Please reach out to us, talk to us. Ask us to show you things. We would be happy to show you lots and lots more of what we showed you today, whether it's the in-process capture and how that could apply to you, or Ephesoft in general and how that could apply to your documents. We are happy to show that to you with your documents. We're also happy to introduce you to our customers. If you have questions, concerns, around Ephesoft or around Zia, I'm happy to do that. Second is really getting started. And for many of you, that's going to be getting started with the trial. So one of the things that we like to suggest, I know from my time working around both Alfresco and Ephesoft, really the largest sort of determinants on whether people have moved forward, we found over and over, is whether they're able to successfully implement the trial. And so lots and lots of people download an Ephesoft trial, an Alfresco trial, things like that, and they never really get it stood up. We're happy to help. Please let us help. Please contact us. We can help you download the trial. We can help you get the trial going. And again, we want to see you successful with Ephesoft. And so we're willing to help with that. And then finally, if you're looking for more information, just go to our webpage, go to our resources library. Again, a lot of what we've talked about today is available either as additional webinars, as videos. We have lots and lots of data sheets, brochures, case studies, things like that.